I have always had the saying of like everything happens for a reason. It all plays out how it's supposed to. You get great opportunities that look awesome in the moment. It's tied up like the perfect gift, and then as you unwrap it, you're like, oh wow, that's Pandora's box. I don't want it. You put that back, and then you have other times that it shows up in a raggedy old box, and you're like, well, I mean, I'll see, and then it turns out to be something glorious in the end.
Yeah.
So you just take each moment and learn from what you can.
Yeah, 100%.
The Converse Cowboy journey has given me an opportunity to sit down with some amazing performers that are living the Western lifestyle, where it is my job to tease out their habits and routines so that you can apply and test yourself in your own life. I've learned, I've grown personally, I've been enlightened, and I've been humbled. Above all, I realize that there is no destination in this life, no goal achieved or money made that can replace the feeling of flow and the pursuit of doing what you love to do. With a growth mindset, I'm constantly asking questions and pursuing knowledge. The Converse Cowboy is a platform that allows me to do just that. I'm excited and eager to share their stories with you all. I'm Mike Roberts. This is the Converse Cowboy. Brought to you by Kerry Kelly Bits and Spurs and Schaefer Outfitter.
So Janzen Tew, glad you're on the show, my friend. For you guys that don't know who Janzen is, she is the CEO and owner of Denim and Velvet, which is a company that she started in 2017. More than just marketing and design, it's more of a one-stop shop for web design, print, digital advertising, social media, logo design, and helping businesses establish their brand. All of the things that I have questions about. So when I say I'm glad you're on the show, I genuinely am. And I visited with Kerry Kelly, and I know you just started working with him. And I'm curious to know, so I read somewhere that, I don't know if you said it was on your website, I believe, that Denim and Velvet bridges the gap between like the high dollar consultants and then the girl down the street who maybe had a MySpace at some time who kind of understands social media. So where did the name come from?
Honestly, so I grew up Western, and denim's a huge part of that. I mean, you've got your jeans, your everyday, they play a huge role. But I love fashion, and velvet's probably one of the most versatile fabrics. And so thinking of meshing the two worlds, Western to fashion, I was thinking of different ways that it would mean something to everyone. So Denim and Velvet, most people do get us confused with a boutique right off the bat based off of our name, but we're not that at all, and so much more than just a Western fashion marketing and design company.
Right on. And it's very catchy. I love it. I love the name. So that's not what you've always done, right? So let's back up and go to what you went to school for. You were in dental hygiene school, is that right?
That was my plan, was to go to be a dental hygienist. And during college, I picked up a camera. My brother's engagement session was my first photo shoot, like legitimate photo shoot that I wasn't just taking pictures of flowers or cattle or anything like that, and fell in love with how good it made people feel when they saw their images, that they looked good, that they felt comfortable in front of a camera, and that really sparked a passion to pursue that as a career.
It was your brother, right?
Yes.
Did you get paid?
I did not. Still, no. They would have paid me. I'm pretty sure I told them no. But they honestly shouldn't have paid me, honestly. Anybody that I took pictures of during that time, I probably owe them money. They were not great.
Right on. So you pick up this side hustle, right? Like while you're in college, you pick up this side hustle of photography. Who were you reaching out to? Were you self-taught?
100%,
how did you learn how to operate a camera?
100% self-taught. YouTube University. My customer base at the time, as I was very into wedding photography, high school seniors, not a lot of college seniors. They didn't have much money, and unless mom and dad were going to pay for it, it was a lot of trade-off if we could do any other work. Or my first logo was a trade for senior photos for a graphic design student, and before I knew anything about design elements or anything along those lines. And then I fell in love with wedding photography. Was my bread and butter. It was doing anywhere from 30 to 40 a year.
Yeah.
But it's a big burnout because it takes a lot of work. And I was offered a job to do fashion photography for a catalog and a website for National Roper Supply as their assistant photographer. And then it just kind of snowballed from there to getting into the product photography. And it was a lot easier, less high maintenance, quicker turnaround, and working with models is a lot easier than just general public that's most people are uncomfortable in front of a camera. You put it in front of them and they freeze. They don't know what to do with their hands or anything else.
So at what point did you realize, okay, I'm not going to do this dental hygiene thing? Like, this is, and the reason I'm asking this question, because that's part of this show, like to understand someone's why behind what they do, you know? And so at that point, you're in college, or you think this is the path for you. Did you finish dental hygiene school? You didn't even finish. So what was it that said, okay, this is the route I'm going to go?
I grew up with self-employed parents and loved the flexibility that they had. I also understood the hardships and the struggles. So that was my original point of going to dental hygiene school. I enjoyed knowing down the road I could minimize to like a 3-day work week, and have the flexibility to travel or anything else. But while I was in school and started doing weddings, I realized I could make a good living and set my own schedule. And that was my number one reason of choosing the career path I was headed towards. So I dropped out of college and just started doing photography full time.
That's awesome. And so you mentioned travel. So photography has taken you where? Australia, Mexico,
Paris,
all over the U.S.
Yeah.
Okay, Paris. Tell me a little bit about that. What were those shoots about? Like, what were you getting hired for?
So Australia, we had some friends that, I grew up in the cutting horse industry, and there's a lot of people that come from Australia to learn about it. One of our dear friends, Sam, she's from Australia, and she fell in love with a boy from Wichita Falls, Texas, and they both moved back to Australia, and they hired me to come over and photograph their wedding, and it was amazing. I spent 2 weeks there.
What part?
So they're from Narrabri, which is about, I don't know direction there. So, but it was like a 3-hour train ride from Sydney. I can tell you that much. I stayed in Sydney for a day or two, and then went to Scone and stayed with some friends, and then went on to Narrabri from there. It was beautiful. They were out in the middle of nowhere, but I felt at home because that's kind of where I grew up as well.
That's awesome. Australia's next on my list. It's on my radar.
I highly recommend it.
Years.
Highly recommend it.
So you mentioned the cutting horse industry. So we're going to back up a little bit. So tell me a little bit about your first job. And is it true that you started out working with Bill Freeman?
It is. I went to work for him when I was 13 years old. My family, they would take you to whatever show, but you had to work hard. And if I was going to work hard, I wanted to get paid for it. So,
smart girl.
Yeah. So I called Bill and asked if I could get a job. He called my mom and said, hey, she's got it, but I'm making her come for an interview. And I was a very small child, so I showed up, and his first task was to make me saddle a horse. At the time, I could pull it off the saddle rack, but I had to put the seat of the saddle on top of my head and like jump and throw it onto a horse. So I had to saddle and get a horse ready for him to work at the house. And I thought that I was making millions. When I went to work for him, I think at the time I made $250 a month. But,
killing it.
Yeah, I mean, 13 years old, that's good money. And I was given the opportunity to ride a lot of great horses. I was fortunate to grow up horseback and had a decent understanding and good horsemanship. Mm-hmm. And Bill had the firm belief that a child could calm a horse down and would do them good in the youth. So if he had an open horse or even any of his novice horses that maybe were just needing to relax and get back to enjoy being a horse doing what they did, I got the opportunity to show them. So it was a lot of fun.
So did you grow up in the youth?
I did.
So you were showing?
I did. I quit showing when I went to college. I haven't competed in about 11 years now, but I'm still friends with so many people within the industry, and it's been a lifelong set of friends. I'm very thankful for that.
That's awesome. I want to kind of hang on that for a little bit. You don't know this, but the rest of the week we have all cutters coming on the show. Matt Gaines,
yes.
Don Benuelos, Tatum Rice, and Mr. Paul Hansma.
All great people. Matt would be probably the only one that I don't have a friendship with. I have friendships with his children, but Bill at the time was doing more weekend shows when Matt was very focused on age events at the time.
I got you.
But Tatum, very good friend, Adon, yes, and then I grew up with Paul's daughters, so.
Right on.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that. For the people that they may have never been around cutting horses. They may have never been around the Western lifestyle. You know, some of the listeners are outside of this Western culture. So can you talk a little bit about what that was like at those shows, whether you're going to a weekend show or aged event shows, and then leading into your experience with Bill?
I will say I don't know any group that works harder than the cutting horse industry. There's a lot of hours that have to be put into it, no matter if you're a weekend trainer or aged event or both. We, at any given time, had up to 30 horses in the barn that had to be rode every day. I also don't know people that will fight for each other harder and help at any given moment through the good, the bad, the ugly. A lot of friendships get made, broken, and remended in that industry, and I've seen a lot of it happen. I also have lifelong friends that I could go years and years without speaking to, and then run into them somewhere and have a 2 and 3 hour conversation.
Yeah.
Like we had never lost track of time.
Yeah. That's what blew my mind about the cutting. I just got into it about a year ago. It's team roping and did some working cow, and then got into cutting, and I've been bit by the bug. Like I'm addicted.
Yes.
But it's like you got 4 guys turning back for you. The very next run, they may be competing against you, but when when it's your turn, like they're helping
there
you
for you.
And not only that, even after the run, like they're giving advice. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Don I heard say in another interview, like that's a true competitor. Like I want to beat you at your best, and so I'm
Yes.
willing to give you the information that I know that may.
Well, and they
may
want to
better
help you to be your best as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that was tricky in the youth at times because the parents are the help for all the kids, and you're competing against their kid to win on their best horses.
Right.
And so I won't say that it couldn't get political at times, and you had to pick
Sure.
and choose at what shows who helped you win. And then there were some that were always straight line across the board. They were just there for the kids.
Yeah. So do you still show?
I do not.
You still ride?
I do. I
Got
do.
some horses at your place?
I do. My husband team ropes for
Okay.
a living, and so actually the very first rodeo we showed up to, I did not grow up in the rodeo atmosphere at all. We pull in maybe 25 minutes before everything's getting started.
Right.
He gets his horse out, gets on, lopes like 3 circles, ready to go, and I'm
Yeah.
like, hold on,
Yeah.
we got our horse ready. Like, where are we gonna lope at? And he's like,
Yeah.
I'm done.
Yeah.
But it has come to his benefit at times. We were in San Antonio, and he had a horse that had been ranch rodeoed on a lot, but not been seasoned for rodeos, and he had gotten a little riled up in the box during the first night. So the next day, the cutting was going on the same time. I went and turned back for about 4 hours for people in the practice pen, loped him for several hours, and then he was great for the next 2 nights of the
Yeah, I
rodeo.
bet.
He was nice and tired.
2 totally different worlds for people that don't know or haven't been around horses. Like rodeo world, cutting, totally different.
Yes. And I wasn't aware of that at the time.
Yeah.
I thought everyone got their horses ready the way that we did. And cutters are very immaculate. Like everything's nice and tidy. Everything's in its place. The same saddle, blanket, saddle bit on every horse. Rodeoers are not.
Yeah.
They're whatever they can get their hands on. And if they have a matching set of boots, they're good.
That's awesome. See, I did it the opposite. I started doing the team roping, very amateur, right? So I just started there, and then I went to the cutting. It's like, oh, okay, so we have to be in the arena
At a certain time.
The set before, so we're loping for an hour and a half or more. Okay, I get it.
It's a lot of
I
time
get it.
horseback. Yeah, I've had a couple times like that. Cody was training a head horse, and he had said, hey, just take him over to that pasture and lope him a little bit before I need a rope on him. I'm like, okay. I make like 6 laps around there. It's a decent sized pasture. This horse is just lathered up, breathing hard. And he's like, I still have to rope on him. I'm like, I know. He's good and tired now. He's like, no, I need to have some energy. I'm like, oh, I don't know the rules. I just went and did my job. I was really good at getting horses ready.
That's funny. Hats off to him and anybody that is roping for a living, because that is a tough road, right?
It
Running
is.
up and down the road, there are no $1 million contracts. It's not like
No
the NFL.
guaranteed paychecks.
Right. So hats off to those guys. Anybody doing that. I love the transparency that I found, like whenever I was doing some research from through Denim and Velvet. And so your quote is kind of long, but it says, "When working with me, here are a few things you need to know. I'll become your friend, and I'll insert myself into your life. We may never meet, but I'll ask how the fam and pets are doing all the time. And I want to know that both are happy and successful. I'll probably get my words mixed up, stutter, and then laugh at myself for it when we're on a call. It's truly a gift. But more than anything, you'll find I work my ass off for my customers." Man, like I thought that was so cool because everybody wants to present their perfect self, right, in public, and we're somewhat afraid to reveal the truth that we are human, and so.
I'm far from perfect.
Right, but I noticed even that and like the video you did, there's a little YouTube video that you're explaining like who Denim and Velvet is and who the people are in the office, and it was very just transparent. So what is it about that? Like, why did you go down that path?
Well, I think anybody can relate to somebody as their true self. You get intimidated by somebody that's too perfect.
Yeah.
You're scared to work with them. Like, you might not live up to the standards that they have, or your business may not be good enough, big enough, perfect enough to be able to work alongside them. We all make mistakes. We're all human, and we like to have a lot of fun at Denim and Velvet. That's like our main goal. If we don't laugh together every day, then it wasn't a good day. Like, we want to enjoy, and our customers do become our family. We go out to eat with them. We ask about their families, what's going on in their life. If they lose a pet or if they gain a pet, we're there to send a gift. And same with family members or just life in general. And especially last year, it was a hard year on a lot of people. Mm-hmm. So anything that we could do, we helped a lot of people by not charging them throughout the year to make sure that their business could still be successful, because we were in a great enough place to be able to offer them that as well. And I think you have to be human and have humanity and empathy with that job when you're working with, a lot of personalities, and not everybody is meant to get along. And so anything that we can do to make that path easier, we try.
How many are in your office, or how many are on the Denim and Velvet team?
There are 5 of us, including myself. We sometimes have 6, depending if we have an intern working with us at the time as well.
Yeah. So tell me this, from what I can tell, you've been very successful in a very short amount of time, winning an award with Cowgirl 30, what is it?
The 30 under 30, which was shocking.
Let me say that again. It's Cowgirl 30 under 30.
Mm-hmm.
What does it take to win that award, and then what does it mean for you to win that award?
So I don't know what it takes to win that award. I'm going to clarify that. They sent out a survey, and the first group of us were nominated.
Okay. I
had no idea that I had been chosen until like 2 weeks before the ceremony was like happening during the American in 2020. From what I'm told, to be on that means that you are making waves within the industry, setting a standard, both helping people and growing a business to be successful at the same time. I would say that I fall under the helping people more. Not that our business hasn't been successful, but I strive to be the person that is there for a phone call at any time, even if somebody doesn't wind up being a customer.
Yeah.
It was surreal to be part of that. I stay behind the scenes with the business a lot, even though I'm the face of it. So to be recognized, and even though it was my name on it, it was truly Denim and Velvet's award versus just Janzen's.
Yeah. So I was in pharmaceutical sales for a long time, and you're kind of bred or like taught to be a certain way, but I think what's resonating now more than anything, and you're proving that, is just being genuine, being authentic, being you, and that's what sells. Because it's so rare to see that.
And I have trouble with the word authentic, because in my industry of social media, it gets thrown around a lot. Be authentic, be authentic. But in the action of using that word in your post, you generally aren't that, because you're targeting an area that you have an issue with.
In what way?
Well, I think people will discuss, like, be authentic, be yourself, and then call someone else out in the same sentence of not being themselves. And maybe that's authentically them to, like, point fingers. I have a hard time with that, though. Genuine, I think, would be the more term. I try to treat everyone the way that I would want to be treated. I was brought up that way. I was raised to treat everyone with the same amount of respect, whether they were the janitor or the CEO. No one was above or below me, and I feel that way. There's not a job that I won't do. I will scrub toilets, I'll take out the trash, but then I'll also be able to go out and have a business dinner or anything like that. And so I try to treat each one of the girls that work with me, they don't work for me. Mm-hmm. We work alongside each other that same way as if I was meeting with anyone else.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. You see that, and you see the gurus and tell you live your truth and be authentic. What I mean by the word is like deeply understanding what your center is, like deeply understanding what your truth is, and really taking time to navigate and figure out who you are, and then be
Yes.
that person and don't deviate from it.
And that's hard.
It is, and it changes.
Right.
I mean, and that
And then
changes.
people judge you because it changed from what they first met. And that can be difficult.
Right? And then, if we're going to go even deeper than that, not letting their judgments affect you and the
changing
self-judgments you may have, because that's a thing.
It is.
And so I'll use that as a segue into like when you started Denim and Velvet, avoiding the comparison game, and I think that's something that everybody may fall victim of at some point during their career. So did you experience that? If so, how did you navigate it?
Yes and no. At the time, there were definitely other marketing and design companies. The ones that I was familiar with were a lot older and more established. And we were trying to niche ourselves into the Western fashion industry, working with boutiques, very small Western businesses. Our whole goal at the beginning was small businesses, how to work with them and let them have the marketing team of a multi-million-dollar company on a shoestring budget. So the comparison game happened in areas of the business, not the business as a whole, like fighting the fight to get a customer versus a different photographer or against a different graphic designer for branding and elements like that versus another marketing and design team. It was like which jobs we could get and then establishing a customer base, because at the beginning you have no reviews. Nobody has anything but your word that you're good enough to do something.
Yeah.
So being able to say, hey, we are good enough, just trust us, give us your money and we'll show you. And then also not look at the competition and say, okay, they just did this on this campaign, or they just did this on this photo shoot. We have to do that, or we have to do that, but better. I have a rule that I don't follow any companies that do what we do, because I never want to be influenced by what they're doing with our jobs.
That's very sage advice. So that's Denim and Velvet. What about Janzen Tew?
Well, Janzen
Avoiding
Tew,
the comparison game.
Janzen doesn't really do much on social media anymore because my business is so busy. I thought I was a fashion influencer for a minute, but that takes a lot of work and a lot of time that I don't have. I definitely march to a different beat than most people. I will show up to any event looking like, I say that office chic is like my style. It's like I might show up to a rodeo in slacks and a button down. So my Western influencing wasn't perceived very well because it wasn't necessarily Western. But if I get on social media, it's usually, I use my time on there to cheer on other people, champion them, give people comments and advice and tell them how great they're doing, or if I've noticed them like pushing through, if I've seen that they've been struggling, and just tell them, that they're doing awesome and they should keep going.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to another. You had a lot of good quotes, by the way. Another quote, kind of along those same lines. Your advice to young women entering entrepreneurship: be honest in all that you do, and never be afraid to ask a question. As somebody who is hyper curious and I'm full of questions like all the time, like that resonated with me a lot, and so I don't feel like, I think the dumb questions are the greatest questions, because either people are too afraid to. That's the thing I learned. The dumb question I thought I was the only one that had, come to find out everybody's typically
When
got.
I tell the girls at the office, there's no such thing as a dumb question. The only dumb question is the one that you don't ask.
Yeah.
Because you only ask a question because you don't know, or you want to know more. There's nothing dumb about that. You're learning, you're curious, and you want to be better. If you're asking a question, 9 times out of 10, it's to become a better person in one facet or the other, whether that's business or personal.
Yeah. So where does that come from, though?
My mom always said, just go ask them. All they can do is say no. They can't take your birthday away. So, all right, I can deal with a no.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I don't know, even even like preparing for these shows, that's a time for me to explore my mind and explore the questions I have. And when I get stuck, it's like, well, what do you want to know? And what question do you need to ask?
And why do you want to know it?
Yeah, that's another good one. That's probably the main one that we should understand. Tell me this, so like you get Denim and Velvet going in 2017, you start to gain some momentum. How do you avoid the expectations either that you put on yourself or that maybe some others put on you as an entrepreneur growing a new business?
Well, I was very fortunate. Group W Productions, they put on a lot of trade shows during the NFR, the Stetson Country Christmas, Roper Cowboy Marketplace. And they also put on a couple events, all in breakaway, all in barrel race. I was introduced to them and they allowed us to do a fashion show in 2017. And then when we got done with it, they said, hey, we heard you're a marketing team. Our marketing director just had a baby and she wants to stay home. So what can you help us with?
Yeah.
And I say yes to everything because I'm going to figure it out. I was like, everything, whatever you have, we can do it. Definitely bit off more than I can chew, but that allowed the business to grow and have a set income every month and a regular paycheck where we could dive into other projects and expand and show off other areas that we could do. Definitely gave me a lot of sleepless nights at first because I had done some graphic design, not to the scale that they had needed, and I YouTubed everything I could, dug into the previous designer's files, and I just pushed my way through it. And thankfully, here we are 5 years later, still working with them and able to have that partnership. But that was a huge area. It gave us a lot of relief, having a steady paycheck. My goal is to always be better tomorrow than I was today. Mm-hmm. And so whatever I do today, I need to push myself to do more than that tomorrow. I was fortunate to get a lot of great deals and photo shoots and partnerships throughout that and connections that I've made through Dallas Market. So other than that, I also in 2019 started working with a business coach. And she made focus goals each month, and then we made macro goals from those on how to reach the larger goals. And that changed my perspective versus just looking at the big picture and then getting defeated when we didn't reach it. Mm-hmm. It was, what small steps are you taking to reach those? What are we doing this week to the next week? And things like that. I was also, I've fought with Imposter Syndrome since day one, and I feel like every business owner does. But she helped me learn how to do a pitch and reach out to just any big brand and tell them why you should do, like, that why they should work with us and what we could do for them. And those moments have really influenced truly the success from there.
Yeah. That hits me too, because it's like I'll get overwhelmed or I'll get the anxiety when I try to look at, so I'm a real estate investor by day and Converse Cowboy by night. But so I'll get overwhelmed, but it's like, when you do break it down like to the micro and you do the consistent things every single day and you play for the long game, right?
Yes.
You hear, I don't know if you follow Gary Vee or not.
I do. I love Gary Vee.
He talks about that, and it's reassuring to hear. It's validating to hear that, to take those little steps every single day. And at some point, the compound effect is going to take over, and then it just starts to snowball.
Yes.
But how do you continue to evolve? You talk about being better tomorrow than you were today. How does that continue? What does that look like, I guess, your routine day to day?
So in the beginning, it was finding new customers, growing each part of the business. And now it's turned into education. We're working on a photography course for boutique owners so that they can take their own photos. And they don't, some boutique owners get scared to work with us because they have to ship their product to us. And that means that they're without their product and that they can't make money on those items while they're in our hands. So if I can educate them on how to take their own pictures, work with models, prep photo shoots, all of the details from A to Z to get one done. What I know is not a secret, so why not pass it on and help other businesses grow in different areas? Yeah. So it's evolved from the day-to-day hustle to a long-term education.
Yeah, I love that. And so that's something I've learned. So my brother came on board with the real estate stuff, and as I started to teach him, I started to learn more.
Yes.
And I think I heard Rogan talk about it, like we have pluses, minuses, and equals. Mm-hmm. And so people we look up to, and seek advice from mentors. And then we have our peers, and then we have people that we're teaching, and that I feel like is whenever I'm learning the most.
Agreed. Because I see something from a different way, or like explaining it a new way.
You have to really know your shit
Yeah.
to be able to explain
Which
it.
was very hard for me the first time I tried to teach the camera class that I offer now. I was like, oh, you just turn this dial. And they're like, oh, what dial? I'm like, oh, you know that one. They're like, no, I actually am scared of my camera. No, I don't want to break it. So no, I don't know what dial you're just magically talking about.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. Well, here, let me break it down a little bit more.
That's the way
You
I
don't
feel.
read minds? That's weird.
Carrying these guys' camera equipment up here, I'm like, I'd get this away from me. I don't want to hold this any
I have got a
longer.
lot of my friends like that. I'm like, oh, it's fine. You can't break it. Like, you can just carry it. You don't have to, like, it's expensive, but
Yeah.
it's not, like, going to break in your hands. And if it does, then we don't need it.
So tell me this. You seem like you're very dialed in, like you have a plan, you're very effective. How do you determine what you say yes to? How do you determine what you say no to? Whether that be an event, speaking engagement, another business idea. How do you determine what to say yes to and what to say no to?
Gut instinct. I don't have a good answer to that if it feels right. As far as day-to-day business, my schedule gets pretty much scheduled down to the minute every day.
Are you doing it weekly? Like you'll sit down at the beginning of the week, or are you doing it monthly?
Pretty much by the day. I mean, like my schedule is throughout a week, but we add things in every day.
Yeah.
But I will look at kind of like what their turnaround time is, what their timeline is, if it's something I know I can achieve or can get it to them ahead of time. If I know that I'm not going to hit their timeline, I'll always say no, or be very upfront with them about that and say, you need these deliverable by X date, but I have all of this ahead of you. I know I can't. And sometimes they're like, well, we can adjust our deliverable time if they want to work with us that much, which anytime that happens, it's kind of like, oh, wow, you enjoy us. So that's cool. But I try to do it weekly and then look at the month as a whole and see what we were able to do in that time. And then I judge the next week or the next month, so to speak. Like, can I handle more? Do I need to scale back? Am I exhausted? Did I drop the ball? Were the projects perfect, or were they just delivered, and kind of regulate from there? Because some weeks, if I get to be in the office every day, I can handle a lot more. But if I have to be out and traveling, then that means when I go home, I still have to work till 10, 11 o'clock at night. And then the next day is a little bit harder.
How do you answer that question to yourself honestly, though? Because you seem like you're very ambitious, as I am. And so it's hard for me to say no. I'm getting better at saying no to things. But just like the Group W thing, like you said you weren't ready for that, but you said yes, and it all worked out, and you kind of, it sounds like you grew from it. So
now I look at the project as, how can I delegate? Can I handle it all by myself? If I can't, are there areas I can hand off? And the areas that I can hand off, does that team member have too much on their plate? And then I kind of evaluate from there if it's a yes, a no, or let them know that we can't do it during their time period, and we'd love to talk to them later.
Yeah.
It's more of a balancing game now at this point, but I still try to say yes to everything. I mean, I want to do every job.
Yeah, balance. That's my term of the last month, like finding balance in everything.
And I mean,
when to work, when to let go, when to
that was
surrender.
my big struggle. In 2020 was amazing for me because I had not taken a day off. And so making me slow down, making me realize that it was okay that I wasn't working 16, 17-hour days every day.
And it's somewhat productive, right?
Yeah, well, and not only that, I mean, like, I thought it was, like, impressive. Oh, I work 17-hour days every day. You don't? Like, what are you doing? And then I was like, oh, I can actually get a lot done in, like, 9 hours. And I'm not dropping the ball anywhere because I'm not overextended. Paige Lawrence, she's my business coach, and she told me, she's like, you have to take one day a week. I don't care what day of the week it is, but it has to be a you day. And you can't work. And I was like, what do you mean I can't?
The week being Monday through Friday or
No.
Monday through Sunday?
7 days a week. She's like, you have to take one day. I don't care what day it is, but you can't work. You can do something. Like, I don't care if you go to your girlfriend's house, go to a rodeo or roping with your husband, lay on the couch and watch Netflix. I don't care what it is, but you have to take a day to yourself. I was like, I can't do that. She's like, okay, give me an afternoon. Okay, I'll try. I have successfully taken one me day in a year, but I have taken a lot of afternoons. So.
Yeah. So what did you do on that day?
My one full day, I went and met a girlfriend for brunch, and then I went and got a 2-hour massage. Went and got my eyelash extensions done, which means I had to lay still for like an hour. And then went to a girlfriend's house and played with her kids, and we had a sock throwing tournament. So it was pretty intense.
Hell yeah. That's something that's a practice for me too, because I feel like if I'm not at my office or if I'm not preparing for interviews, like that I'm being non-productive. And I think that's good. There's somewhat of a dichotomy there, right? Like the push to get better, and then also this letting go and surrender, and somewhere in there is the balance that works. And I think it's different for every person.
Well, it was hard on me as a boss too, which I still don't think I'm very good at. I'm learning every day. To see them having a personal life outside of work, I'm like, why aren't we working 24/7? There's a job to be done. There's always something to do. Then I had to realize, like, okay, this is my company. Like, I'm the one that is that invested into it every day. And then as I slowed down and realized, like, okay, they all have personal lives. They had lives before they came here. They'll have lives after they leave. No matter what it is, it's okay. And then realizing that has allowed me to be a lot more relaxed. I'm very much a type A, get everything done, make a list, stick to it. It should be done the right way the first time kind of person.
Yeah, totally get it. Totally get it. Tell me this. So if somebody were to come here today and say, Janzen, I'm going to give you a check for $100 million or any amount of money that you don't have to ever work again in your life, what do you do tomorrow?
Work.
On?
Next project, more things. Probably still taking pictures. I don't know that I could ever not work. I've had this conversation with a lot of people, like COVID. I think I had like a total of like 10 days off, and it was cool. But then I was like going out of my mind, like I needed something to do. Yeah. So I started 2 more businesses during COVID because I was like, well, I can do something else.
What are those businesses?
I have Kick-Ass Drinks. I got 3 donkeys. They'll come to your party and carry some beer or drinks or whatever you want around.
That's genius.
Yeah. They do a lot of weddings, styled photo shoots, things along those lines. And then I also opened a natural light photography studio that's open to the public to rent that we use quite a bit for Denim and Velvet as well. And it's inside the historic Crazy Water Hotel in Mineral Wells.
That's awesome. You know, we mentioned delayed gratification earlier. Like, I struggle with that term because if you look at what you're doing, and you're doing it not for an outcome or result, but if you're doing it because you genuinely love doing it, like you're doing it for the fruit of the labor, not the fruit, you know? And so it's like, is it really delayed gratification if you're getting gratification for the work that you're doing?
Yeah, and I've had to like really like sit down and look back at what I've accomplished, because you are so hyper focused on what's happening in the moment that you don't see everything that's been done in the past. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how great large Denim and Velvet grows. It's how much we help our customers, how much their businesses grow, how successful they are, how happy they are with the results they get from us, and things along that line. And so anytime we get that like job well done, that's what matters to me. No matter if I think that their social media campaign or email blast or website or logo and branding or photo looked amazing and was awesome, the moment they say, this is what I wanted, this helped me, this is why we chose to work with y'all, that's the momentum to go and do the next job. Yeah,
I love it. And I totally agree. Like it is important to reflect back on what you've done, not only for yourself and for your business, but for the customers, because it kind of reminds us why we do what we do. It's it's a confidence booster, but at the same time, not dwell on it, because then the ego starts to just get a little bit out of control, you know? So
I will say, when I got your show notes and the questions you asked for, like a highlights or greatest hits, and I sat there, I actually had a phone call that week. I have a call every week with my business coach, and I told her, I was like, hey, this is what I need this hour dedicated to today. I have no clue what to talk about. I was like, I have a hard time thinking that anything we've done is worthy. And so her like, all right, what'd you do this year? What'd you do during this time? How did this work out? And then I was like, oh, we have done some cool things.
Yeah.
Okay, there is something to send in.
Yeah, that's the imposter syndrome taking over, right? Tell me this. So if a new customer, let's say Converse Cowboy, wants to get the services of Denim and Velvet, what does that process look like right out of the gate?
So number one, I ask what areas you feel like you can't handle. What do you drop the ball on, and then what do you excel on? Because everybody has their area that they are incredible at, and then the areas where they want to be better. And then from there, we see where Denim and Velvet can pick up the slack, where we can be essentially your virtual assistant and your team member that you need on hand. Then from that, we evaluate, we do a business analysis of, okay, you said you need help on X, but we also see areas in Y and Z that we can help you as well. We give you an overall bulk discount rate if you do multiple services, or what it is piece by piece. And then from there, we say, does this fit your budget? What would fit your budget? What pieces are appealing to you? And then we see how many different areas we're able to help you out on. And then from there, we become your best friend, and we pretty much annoy you every day, trying to be like, all right, you did this, let's do the next one. We finish that mark on our to-do list. Let's hit this next one.
I love it. I'm going to bounce back for a minute. You mentioned mentors, or you mentioned your coach. It's going to be a two-part question. How did you find her? What was it that made you say, okay, I think I need a coach of some kind, a business coach?
So there was a group of rodeo wives, and Paige was doing like a 10-day course for different rodeo wives on having a positive mindset. We talked about before, there's no guaranteed paycheck, and it can be really hard to stay positive when everything's not going the right way.
Yeah.
Paige is an Olympic athlete. She medaled in figure skating there, and so it's a partner event. So I was intrigued from the team roping standpoint of like what I could pass on to my husband, what I could learn to be a better partner to him also after a run if it didn't go well. And then from there, she was like, hey, well, I'm also open to coaching businesses. And I kind of thought about it. I was like, I don't know if I want to like invest that money. Like there's other ways, new equipment or giving raises, other ways that I can invest it. And then I just was like, all right, you're going to try this. Do it. If it doesn't work, it's no harm, no foul.
Right.
But if it does, you could grow. And so we've been working together 2 years now, and it's been incredible. She has changed my outlook on so much, looking at the big picture and then also the day-to-day. We meet together once a week via Zoom, and it's awesome.
Oh, yeah. That is awesome. Okay, so outside of that, what other mentors do you seek advice from?
I try not to, honestly.
What about early on when you first started?
Early on, for sure. I would ask anyone that had like a major company that were working with other marketing teams, what they were needing from their teams as far as deliverables, what they liked and didn't like, more so what they didn't like, so that I wasn't that person. And like how they wanted their communication. Was it text, phone call, email? What was easiest for them? We try not to do a lot over phone call. And if we do it, we immediately send an email or a text with a recap of the conversation. We've learned having things in writing is beneficial for everyone, for both sides, so that we don't drop the ball and then a customer can't come back to us and say, oh, well, we never discussed that.
Right.
There's always those unfortunate moments that happens.
It's not a problem till it is, right?
Correct. So I was fortunate to have friends that worked for really big wholesale companies that were running big brands that had, $1 million marketing budgets. So what are y'all doing? How many times do y'all want to photo shoot? How often are you running social media campaigns? What does it look like to change out the interface on your website? How often are you running email campaigns? What's branding look like? What do you expect from a graphic designer? How many times do you get revisions? All of this, so we could work it into our packages. How soon do we charge for a change? How many different logo designs or ad designs should we send over? How fast should we get somebody a website? And all of those different elements. And that really played a role in us being able to price ourselves correctly, give a realistic turnaround time for each project, and then make sure that we kept every customer happy along the way as well.
It's a lot.
It is.
You've learned a lot.
I have. I'm pretty sure at the start we had 4 options. We had one social media package, you had one logo option, one flat rate for a website, and then a standard product rate. That was it. That's all you got.
So you said you try not to seek advice from others now. Why is that?
It's not so much that I don't want it, but a lot of times if they don't know what's happening day to day, their advice can be hurtful instead of helpful because they don't know what your customers' needs are the way that you do. So it's not that I won't listen to it, but I take a note and then evaluate, does this play any help into growing the business? Does it help our customers in any way? And if not, I thank them for it and keep moving on. If it does, then I try to just show them as much appreciation as I can for helping us grow.
Right on. So this is a question I like to ask, and I know it gets asked a lot on podcasts, but your favorite failure, whether it's in business or in your personal life, whatever it may be, something that may have happened, it may have been a perceived failure that you were like, why the hell is this happening? But then later you realize this had to happen. Because I think too often we see the highlight reel, right? We see the awards, we see the trophies, but we never see what got the people to that point. And every person that I know that is successful had to go through this shit to get to this stuff.
I've had several. I would say my greatest success and failure all in one was starting a business with a friend. We were told, don't do it. We did it anyways. It started the business very well, and then it didn't. And so it was a great failure in the fact of losing a friendship along the way, but it was a great success in learning that the saying of trust your neighbors but brand your cattle is more important than anyone could ever know. So I would say that's probably my greatest failure and success all in one fell swoop.
How long did that last?
A 1-year partnership.
1 year. At what point did it start going south?
When my partner moved to a totally different state. And so then we weren't in the same time zone, and her personal life was a lot busier and balls were getting dropped and customers were mad at me because my phone number was on everything. And so then it was the hurry up and figure it out. And then that's when I had to figure out how to be a boss, but also hand a workload over to someone with a lot of angry people and be involved, but let them do their job at the same time. So, it was a great success in the way that it taught me quickly, but a failure in the heartache that I had to go through.
Yeah. It's hard to see, like, when you're going through it, and it sounds cliche to say, like, failure is an opportunity to learn.
It was a huge.
It's very true, and, like, hindsight's always 20/20, and it's crystal clear, but... And
I wouldn't do it any different. Like, I would start it the exact same way that it did. Because it made the company who it is now, and it has developed me into the person that I am. Yeah.
And I firmly believe, as woo-woo as it may be, like, everything happens just as it's supposed to. Like, I have the mantra, like, life is happening for me, not to me.
Correct. I agree with that.
Yeah, and so whenever the worries and the shit starts to come up, I have to reframe, I have to recalibrate and go back to that mantra, and it really does. Like, it just settles all the fears, it settles all the worries, and even though I may not understand it in the moment, it always reveals itself at some point.
Oh, definitely. And I have always had the saying of, like, everything happens for a reason. It all plays out how it's supposed to. You get great opportunities that look awesome in the moment. It's tied up like the perfect gift. And then as you unwrap it, you're like, oh, wow, that's Pandora's box. I don't want it. You put that back. And then you have other times that it shows up in a raggedy old box and you're like, well, I mean, I'll see. And then it turns out to be something glorious in the end.
Yeah.
So you just take each moment and learn from what you can.
Yeah, 100%. Here's another question that's tired, but I love it. If you could go back in time and give your 20-year-old self advice, knowing what you know now, hypothetically, you can go back in time. What advice do you give to yourself?
Don't put everything on social media.
Why is that?
I lost a job that way. Being stupid, posting stuff I shouldn't have. Didn't go to work one day, then was out somewhere else later that evening. And it wasn't anything that shouldn't have been on social media, but because of that, another coworker saw me out, and then I wound up losing a job. So I think social media isn't always social.
That's a tough one too, right? Like,
especially because that's my job.
So before Converse Cowboy, I was anti-social media. I didn't even know what the hell Instagram was. And but I think it's like a loaded gun. It's how you use it, and it can be. I think Sturgill Simpson said it's both the greatest thing and the worst thing to happen to the human race, right? And so, how do you because I hated putting stuff out. It's like, look at me. I hate doing that, but it's also like people want to know, so it's
curiosity.
Somewhat of
No, I agree. I just don't think that everything needs to go out there. I'm very happy that the trend of people taking a picture of every meal they ate is not on Facebook anymore. I'm proud of you for having lunch today. I don't need to see it. There's some good and bad to that. It's like a double-edged sword. But I learned that thankfully very early on. And so many employers look at social media, how you act, because you are a walking billboard for every company. So do their beliefs line up with your personal actions? So I think that's probably what I would tell my 20-year-old self. You can put whatever you want out there, but be cautious.
Yeah.
Think about how it would affect you 10 years down the road. I've also learned, thanks to Facebook memories, that I posted a lot of really stupid song lyrics. Like, why? Why did that need to be a caption? That's why there was no likes or comments as well. So.
Yeah. I'm going to respectfully disagree. I say, post whatever you're doing like that, and you really know who you are, like post it. And if it doesn't align with whoever, like if you have a boss and it's not aligned, maybe you need to part ways. Clearly they worked out for you for the better. And so, that's something that I'm leaning hard into, is being able to voice my opinion, and listen objectively, but at the same time, like, speak my truth, and if it doesn't align with someone.
Well, at the end of the day, my deal, I got caught in a lie, so it's like.
So you weren't being truthful.
No, I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
I took the day off work because I didn't want to go in because there were other fun things to go on.
Yeah.
And then I was stupid enough to post later on about an event. I
did.
So not everything needs to go on social media.
I see.
So yes, there is very much truth in what you're saying as well. But I mean, what 20-year-old didn't call in sick to work and not want to be there because their friends were doing something more fun? I just wasn't smart enough to keep my fun off of social media at the same time. So there was some good and bad to that. I learned, hey, don't lie about where you're going. Don't call in sick. But also, maybe not everything needs to be out there.
Fair enough. Okay, so how do you determine how do you determine what goes out there and what doesn't?
Now, I have a rule that I learned from a fellow photographer. I don't ever post about where I am in the moment. I wait until I'm gone from there. And the reason that I do that, and I think a lot of women more so have to deal with this, you get really creepy people that try and come and find you in those areas. I travel alone a lot, and I'll be in some remote locations. So everything can go on social media. It's just very rarely that it happens in the moment.
No, I think that's very sage advice. Very sage advice, especially for women. So what's next?
Everything.
We've talked about how you got to where you are now. What's next for Janzen Tew? What's next for Denim and Velvet?
Expanding as much as we can. My goal this year is to work on more commercial campaigns versus product photography. I love product photography. It's what keeps me busy every day. But doing the big campaigns, going to remote locations, working on bigger projects, that's the goal now.
Right on. I love it. And I'm excited to see where you take it, right? I see the content you guys put out, and I absolutely love it.
And we're expanding back to our Western roots. So that's really nice. Like you said, we are very excited to be working with Carrie Kelly. I mean, that's an iconic company in the Western community.
He's a great dude, too.
He is.
And
he's awesome.
I forget how talented he is.
Well, and he was unsure about us in our first meeting. Because like I said, I'm going to show up in like business attire.
Yeah.
And so he's like, what do y'all really know about the Western world?
Yeah. How is that, though? Like, because you are very presentable. You're decked out. Looks like you could be in an office suite in Dallas somewhere. How has that been a challenge? Like, talking with people like a Carrie that are...
It has been.
Deep roots in the Western culture. I mean...
It has been, and it goes to... I don't ever want to be a person that's like a name dropper or has to get a job off of something else, like somebody else's name. And so working with people and then having to explain, yes, I grew up showing cutting horses, and I didn't just show at a backyard cutting. I worked for prestigious people. I showed really nice horses. My brother still trains great ranch horses and works for a wonderful ranch, and I'm friends with people within that world and all of the different ties and communities that my husband rodeos for a living. And you don't want to have to use somebody else's name to get a job, but sometimes it's necessary to explain that background so that they have the faith in you that you do know what you're talking about. You don't want to be the person that is misspelling a piece of a bit or talking about a bit as if it's a spur, etc., and like getting things wrong where they're having to correct you the whole time.
Right. Has Carrie ever taken you back down to a shop to show you where it's all?
Yeah, I'm scared of his dog Blue though. I mean, I really want to pet Blue so bad because he looks so friendly, but he's not the friendly.
He's always got a Frisbee in his mouth whenever I go over there.
Or something, yeah, but I'm afraid to even try and take it. He might bite my arm in the process.
We were lucky enough to go visit with him one time, and he took us on a tour through the shop and got to see his process.
It's really cool.
So cool. And the system he's got down and what he's doing for the performance horse world is
and introducing new mouthpieces and shanks. And it's amazing how things like that can evolve. It's not the industry of like the way it started. It has to stay forever.
Right.
Each horse has a different need.
Right. I'm going to shift gears again on you to what I'm now changing the name. What was once called Rapid Fires, it never really seemed to be that rapid. So I'm going to call this the Slow Fire.
Okay.
Slow Fire round. And so this is brought to you by Ghostwood Distillery, and we're now calling it the Slow Fire round.
I'm better with that.
Yeah.
I like to
So feel free to
soak
take
it all in.
take as long as you want. So I know you said you traveled a lot. But what is one place that you've never been to that you would love to visit?
Next on my bucket list is Greece. That's where I'd like to go next. They think they have some of the coolest architecture and colors. A lot of the color palette is white for background, so any clothing or product would pop off of it and like make a big standout. So that's next.
So it'd be a work trip
always.
or a play trip
Both.
or both.
Both. I mean, you go for work, so it pays for the trip, but you have to have fun along the way.
Yeah. I love it. How long would you stay for?
I've learned now, with as much as I've traveled, never to go for less than a week. So that way you have, 2 or 3 days dedicated to work, but you also have a couple days to have some fun also.
Yeah, I love it. If you could go back in time, hypothetically speaking, if you could go back in time to any time period for 1 week, when would that be? Period.
I think I would go back to like the 1910s because of how their cameras worked then with the flash photography and how it was all set up and the strictly film and development, because most photographers digitally, we have to know how our cameras work, but it's not as difficult as film, and that time was even more so difficult. I think it would make me a more accurate photographer and to understand and respect the process even more.
What do you think they'd say if you showed up with one of your cameras in 1910?
Probably be scared. Like, what is this contraption?
Who is this alien?
Exactly. What do you mean you don't have to have film and you can take 1 million pictures on one little micro card? You don't have to take it into a dark room and develop it. It goes on a computer. Like, what is that?
Yeah, exactly.
Might have been like hung. They would have thought I was a witch.
Yeah, for sure, right?
Yeah.
Probably would have tortured you and killed you.
Yeah. So maybe I won't go then.
What is the best purchase you've made in the last 6 months that is under $100 that has made a positive impact on your life?
A massage gun for my truck. I spend a lot of time driving up and down the road and my shoulders get super tired. So it was about $50 on Amazon. Best purchase.
That's awesome.
Fits in my glove box. It's so handy.
Okay, so I am a book nerd. I read a lot. I listen to audiobooks, and I'm sure you've gotten this question before in other interviews, but what is a book that you have either like reread most or gifted like to other people most? Work
Party by Jaclyn Hill. It's all about starting businesses, partnerships, everything along those lines. She also owns a company now called Create and Cultivate. It's incredible. She goes through the struggles of being a small business, having what she thought were good contracts, not being good contracts, all the struggle of being a entrepreneurship and then growing it into a large corporation. So it's something that I feel like resonates with me a lot and is kind of aligned with what I've gone through.
Did you read it or listen to it?
Both. Multiple times. I find something new every time. Got a lot of highlighted and earmarked pages in the book.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I love about reading, right? Like because you'll see books that are just filled with highlights and notes and tabs, but then I also like to, for time's sake, I like to listen to them as well. Green Lights is a good one.
Loved Green Lights. Listened to it twice already. Sure, I'll listen to it again.
I can't make myself read that one, though.
I can't either. It's his voice.
Yeah, it's McConaughey.
Exactly. That's my goal right now, is getting in contact with him and getting Carrie's UT buckle on Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, sweet.
That's my big project I'm working on now, trying to get in touch with his people.
Right on. How do you tackle that?
I have no idea.
Emails?
Social media, reaching out. I mean, I don't have an answer. I wish I just know some people.
Yeah. That'd be awesome, though.
Yes.
Here's a fun one. Favorite Western that had the biggest impact on you when you were growing up?
I don't know that it had an impact on me, but my favorite growing up that I've watched so many times, and it's not the normal John Wayne movie that everyone pulls out, but I watched North to Alaska so many times. And I think that's when I fell in love with like even more entrepreneurship, because he moved to go mine gold, left like the love of his life, all this stuff, made all this new group of friends along the way. And that's one of my favorites.
I love it. Haven't gotten that answer yet either, so that's cool. All right, my friend, last question. If you could, metaphorically speaking, have a billboard to get a message out to millions of people, what would that billboard say?
Always believe in yourself and never be afraid to ask for help.
I love it.
Because if you don't believe in yourself, then who else will? And you can't do it all on your own, so you always need a helping hand.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Janzen, that's all I have for you, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by today, and I really have. I've enjoyed chatting with you and getting to know you a little bit more. And like I said earlier, I'm excited to see where Denim and Velvet goes, and where you go, and how many more businesses you start. And what was the other one? Kick-Ass Drinks?
Kick-Ass Drinks.
Yeah,
that's my favorite one. It's the most fun. It's probably the one my husband likes the least, because it means I keep acquiring more and more mini animals. But
well, I love it. I love everything you're doing, and thank you for what you bring to the Western culture and the Western lifestyle. I think we need more people like you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.